It has to be your choice. It has to be your decision. And we mean it, that it has to be your decision to do it. But we feel like it was time for us to bring this option to you. Let me start that way. We felt like it was time for us to present this option to you, and that is any time we receive a note about a suspected strike or something that somebody questions whether or not they did right, or that we would, as we talk to you in meetings, we will bring all of those up. We don't need to say who composed the note or who wrote the note, or we don't need to mention names. But that the best way that we can be, like we talked to you in the last meeting, the best way we can be totally above board and have everything exposed is as we see things happen between meetings in the craft, that in order for everyone in the craft to get the lesson, that we would bring the occurrence that was brought to our attention between the previous lesson and between the previous meeting and the current meeting, and bring the incident up and use it as an example and see how that situation could have been handled, what an individual could do in that situation. Now, it does mean, of course, that as you sit there, you will know that you composed that suspected strike, or you wrote that note, and know that Link knows that you wrote this note, but we don't feel like there's any need to mention it. But there's something about your vehicle that is a little bit more prone to con you if it thinks that the things it gets away with will be kept in privacy between you and your teachers. Do you see what we're saying? And your vehicle, though your vehicle might feel considerable embarrassment at our discussing something that happened, whether the names are mentioned or not, your vehicle might still want to feel embarrassment or hurt. We feel that also this would be a good time for you to get beyond letting the vehicle respond in a personal way of registering embarrassment or hurt. Let's take it simply as an objective lesson. And but we also feel that this is something that must be a decision of yours. And have I said it clearly? Do you have any question about what we're saying that we're going to do if you want us to do it? And so will this include trouble? It'll include anything that's been brought to our attention that we think the entire class would benefit from the lesson.
It will be mostly, sometimes even the notes that we get through Sat 3, like somebody writing a note to Sat 3. If we feel like it will be a good lesson for the class, we will bring that up also. In other words, it won't be limited to suspected strikes or
any of the lessons that have been brought to your attention. Probably a troubled note like, of course, I don't know.
Well, that depends on the trouble.
Yes, it depends on the trouble and whether or not it. That doesn't mean that we will necessarily bring everything to the class's attention. It means that if you want to take this step, then by your saying you want to take the step, we'll give up the option to bring what we feel is right to bring to everyone's attention. But it does not mean that if you choose to do this, we will bring absolutely everything without even thinking about it.
Discretion.
Or without any discretion. Okay?
The reason for that is because we feel like your vehicles aren't aware of some of the things that you're doing. In other words, you can think you're in a really good place, but yet you may not be. Your vehicle has caused you to believe that you have. And you may think, and it's out of ignorance that a lot of things are happening. You know what I mean? So we want to make sure that you all understand what we're talking about when we say keep your vehicle under control and not let it con you, and when you're still doing things that can cause others problems. And so this is
still
behind it.
Are still expressing something that is might be a complete negative, and you might be unable to see that it is a negative.
It's just a matter of exposing everything, and this is what we want you to know. We want to have that happen. I want you to think about it a second, and then the ones who don't want us to go ahead, is that what you're saying?
Yes, because we want those who don't want us to do this to. What do you think it would be that they ought to write a note, and they had to write it by tonight, so that when we call tonight, we'll know if they're worried.
And that's talk about it today. Now, I want to tell you
because we also would have to exclude this duty list and make it on the phone call to me.
Well, I go for it.
Whichever way you
one thing I want to warn you, and that is it can be painful to you.
If you let the vehicle...
Right. In other words, what we're doing is exposing things, and if you don't feel like you're ready, it's perfectly okay. Okay? It's just a matter, and we want to do it in very good taste. We don't want to hurt anybody in the process. The only thing we want to do is to expose the things that need to be corrected, because if you don't become aware of it, and again, I don't want you to think I'm selling you on this, because I'm not. I'm trying to help you to understand why we're doing it. Because on your strain, if you don't get down to the nitty-gritty, sometimes you can't do all that needs to be done for your strain, for your task. So there are a lot of reasons behind doing this. And again, you want to not be afraid to accept exposure.
And there might be a beating time when you're sitting there, and 5 out of the 6 lessons that were brought to attention during that meeting were lessons that you experienced, and therefore your vehicle could try to say, look, it seems like I'm the target. In other words, if we're going to do this the way we have been instructed to do it, and if you feel right about it, if you're ready for it, then we can't hold back. We have to do it, even if you might. I'll tell you, sometimes, and we might as well tell you this, because it's time to grow up enough to know it. There are times when an individual, and this happens not only to 1 or 2 individuals, but has happened to a number of individuals. There are times when an individual might have had so many lessons, had so much brought to their attention, that links would back off on some things that really needed to be brought to their attention, because we were afraid that they didn't have control of their vehicle enough to keep from thinking that they were being singled out, and all the lessons were being directed to them. Because your vehicle, when you don't really have control of your vehicle, if you're getting an awful lot of lessons, the vehicle can say, look, I know where I was coming from. Believe it or not, we've had times when students have really wondered how Links could interpret a lesson the way Links was interpreting it. Because the student might say, that's not where I was coming from. And yet I'm afraid that Links can see right through that and know exactly what was going on, even though your vehicle may have you believing that that's not what was happening at all. And then there comes that conflict. Well, who am I going to listen to? Am I going to trust that my teachers are older members and know what I'm dealing with? Or am I going to believe my vehicle and let it tell me to keep things that I might need lessons in unexposed, so that I'm not falsely accused by my teachers? Now, do you see that predicament it puts us in as your teachers? Because if your vehicle can con you into believing that your teachers are seeing you wrong, we've lost some of your class on this very score. When we have tried to help your class, some of those who have left your class in areas that they really needed help, and their vehicle had them convinced that we were falsely accusing them. And we weren't accusing them at all. We didn't even want to tell them about these things. But it's one thing you have to do in this class, certainly should be doing if you've been here this long, is believe that we are very, very cautious and hesitant to give you lessons. We think them over very carefully. We don't do them hastily. We get instruction on when to give them to you, and we get instruction on how to give them to you. And we trust that instruction. And so if you're questioning us, you're questioning our source. And if you're in that much of a trouble, then you have pretty much decided at that point that your faith in us as older members and as your teachers is very once in a while, up and down. That we're good percentage of the time as your teachers, but at other times we're really off base, unfortunately. And we feel like you all have grown up enough, or certainly should be grown up enough, that we can shoot straight with you and not have to worry about whether or not you're going to listen to an argument from your vehicle. That even though the vehicle might have to go through some difficult feeling, or to get rid of a difficult feeling in conquering the lesson, we have to assume that that you want to be clean, that you want your slate out here. Now, some of you who have been targeted during certain periods have been targeted very heavily. And we know that it's difficult, but it's not a foot tapping. It isn't if you, let's say that an individual in the class has a certain package of characteristics that causes him to have a lot of homework to do for the humans out there. What is different from that than if your vehicle also has to deal with quite a package of characteristics that can help your whole class see things they wouldn't see otherwise if those experiences and those mistakes were not surfaced and clarified. So, in a sense, you're doing a task for us when you are the vehicle of those lessons. And we look at it that way. And therefore, that shouldn't enter into the picture of I don't want the lesson. I don't want to be targeted. I don't want to, I'm talking about what you might hear from your own vehicle. You shouldn't permit the vehicle to say, look, I've had about all I can take of being in the spotlight of lessons. If you are, you're lucky. I'm serious, because you're being used as the tool to show things as lessons to the entire class. Not one of you experienced a mistake or an error or a lesson that all of us cannot benefit by. Not one of you. And none of you have lessons that are so private, that are so separate, that they wouldn't be an additional education for all of your classmates. Maybe I should. Okay. We want you to know, as we thought about it a moment, we're talking primarily about those things that would be brought to our attention, that would be brought through the witness strike category. Primarily that, more that than when you're writing about yourself, when you are the suspected strike. It's more when you are witnessing things. And but I think we've said enough.
Also, if you brought something, wrote a note, like I said a moment ago, to SAT 3 or to Links asking about how somebody is treating you, if you're out of place, then we would bring that to the attention to help you to see how it was the vehicle thinking and not thinking in the most direct way. Do you understand that?
And why not? If we bring it, and if we bring it up, it's a lesson that can assist another class member not turn around and doing the same thing a few days later. And in other words, all we beg for is ways to accelerate this process of being prepared and finishing our task.
And we started it a little bit at the last meeting, and but then we thought about it after the meeting, and sort of got a little bit more information on it, and decided we would see if you all wanted to go that far, because you got a touch of it, remember? And this is what we were talking about. So if that will help you to understand what we're talking about now, because you've got to also remember that Links isn't going to hurt you. In other words, they're going to try and do everything they can to make it as impersonal and objective as possible. And simply because that's not our aim to hurt anybody. All we're concerned about is to get everything exposed so we can get this show on the road and get out of here. So, if that will help with your decision. So, Money, did you have a question?
Well, I was going to say, I feel this is real good because I've been asking for vehicles so that I can see what I'm doing.
We'll put you at the top of the list. Right away. Don't. Hey, I didn't mean that.
We're joking. Now, we want you all to, we will try to be objective and sensitive and impersonal, and we want you all to be the same way and receive an or listen to it. In other words, we don't want you to take that incident and say, oh, what did that apply to? I bet you don't know. This is all going on in your mind, or in your brain, and we don't want you to think like that.
No.
All we want you to do is listen to the
listen.
information and let it stop at that. No labels on it, no one's names on it or anything. Okay, any other?
Very big conference, and we have some way to get around that. It's welcome.
Good.
Well, it's all through quite a bit when we start second meetings, and then when we start strike. It doesn't seem to was Texas. Like
Wouldn't be much different.
It's probably wouldn't be sad.
Okay, good enough.
last intervention on this person Cali.
Person's up.
Gowling.
Gal.
Oh, right.
When things like that happen, when you encourage it, when you encourage it, right,
Well, it's,
Usually it's exposed. Someone is usually the tool to be used to let us know in a way that to help that individual with that problem. You know, it's I can't help but wonder, and it's not that we're into human greeting, like we don't feel like we have to come in and say, oh, how are you today? Did everything go okay at your work? Well, how do you feel? And it go on and on and on. But if we do come in and look at you or say hi with our expression, and we don't get it in return, we wonder a little what's the matter.
or if you smile at somebody and they just look away or not smile back or something, then we wonder, what's wrong. And usually we know. But we know there's something because it's their way of letting us know that they have a beat.
That's right. We feel that they, believe it or not, and you may not have accepted that your vehicle has this problem, but because this might be one of the areas that your vehicle can't you in. But when the vehicle does not respond with the same kind of pleasant expression back, it's just like he said, it's the way the vehicle has of letting us know that it's being disturbed by something. It's got something to be disturbed about. Well, how are we going to do this? Sure, you better take a look. Yes, we take a look.
Leading the way, spreading it all over the bottom.
What would you take it now? Kiss me, Lou?
Would you like the sun out of your eyes? At the bottom? We could close them.
Well, it's going to require, if you do it, that you, as individuals, that each one of you, without exception, as individuals, is not going to be concerned about whether or not you're used as the tool for lessons, because it might be that at certain times that you'll get what your vehicle would consider more than your share of lessons at a time, or be used in that way, because they won't be directed at you. And sometimes it might be in going through certain lessons, you might know by the lesson it is. There might be no way of presenting the lesson without everybody automatically knowing who experienced the lesson. And you've got to be willing to do that. I mean, even without mentioning names, if it happens to be somebody that was 6'5" or something, and you're already down to, you know who, or whatever it might be. So, I wish they'd get on back here.
I could be wrong about what I observed from the last week, and it kind of started last week. And I could be wrong about my observation, but I felt that everyone had to ride in their vehicle a little more than I could, so why didn't they do wrong? And I felt that it was a result of that meeting, so that makes me feel like maybe that's why we've been offered this.
Well, I hope so. That's good.
And I would like to be able to stay on that.
Well, this will keep you in shape or either grabbing your wings. I mean, you'll either stay where you need to stay, and your house will be clean, or you'll be on your suitcase. Because it'll be keeping things right out there in front of you.
Well, in my mind, you ought to be happy that it comes to this stage. Nothing would bother me more than to know that I'm doing something that would cause you all, or even Doe, trouble. If I would come in and act a certain way, and you all are in a position where you couldn't say anything to me, and Doe would be afraid to say something to me, it would disturb me an awful lot to know that I was acting that way. And I think that you all ought to be happy, but if you're not, don't feel badly, because you will grow to feel that way. Plus the fact, like Granddaughter said, everybody's mind, she felt like their mind was in their vehicle. Now, their mind could have been in their vehicle so they wouldn't do anything, so that T and Doe wouldn't bring it up at a meeting. You know what I'm saying? So you can look at it that way. You might say, gee, I want to do everything as good as I can, so I want to be
what harm could come of that? What harm could come of that? Any method that will keep us clean.
Right. All we want you to do is just do what you need to as far as your tax is concerned. And so if this method works, then fine. If not, well, I'm sure the next level will be something else. Presley?
My first impression when we said it was that, like, I felt like something was really being offered to us, and that if we could push through this, we could be ready for a big step.
When you get to the next level, now, remember, what are we trying to do? There are two things that we're trying to do, right? We're trying to get your mind into your vehicle and then help you to do your task, right? Now, members of the next level, if your mind is into your vehicle, the mind doesn't have feelings like this. In other words, their concern is to do everything right. And if they're not doing it right, then they want to know that they're not doing it right. And so, in a sense, what we're trying to do is treat you more like you have your mind in your vehicle all the time, and ignore the human vehicle part.
And ignore personal feelings, or that all you're really concerned with is doing everything right. And then you would want as many lessons as fast as you could get them, and because you wouldn't be concerned with whether or not the lesson was painful.
But we're
We can get above that.
just trying to talk to you eye to eye. Isn't that what they say? Straight into the eye, and know that we're talking to your mind and not your vehicle.
I'll tell you something that while we're waiting for Elodie and Pagodi, that you'll probably never, this is kind of telling you a secret, because it's more what T and Doe have to deal with, but at times when we feel like certain individuals are being targeted for a period of time, like they might have had one lesson right after another, and it seems difficult for them to take. We might feel
I got a feel I'm
maybe
in the wrong direction. I'm all the way down here at Lakeview and Shakespeare Boulevard.
Maybe they can't take anymore. Maybe they're doing the best they can, and they just can't take any more correction. right now. And at times we have felt that that was true, that we had to back off
Okay, I just
because
thought
the
I'd leave
vehicle
it
was so
down.
much in control that that you couldn't have taken anymore at the time. Do you follow what we're saying? So in a sense, we feel good about the fact that we're bringing this to you, because it means in our eyes that we don't have an excuse. And we can't, ultimately, T&O cannot judge whether or not you can take it anymore. In fact, we're not even given that's not part of our task. Our task is to act as if you can take it. You see, because in a sense, otherwise we're putting you down if we think you can't take anymore. Can you follow that? Can all of you follow that? In other words, if we back off a little bit because we feel that it might be kind of tough for you to take a lesson right after you've had a couple of pretty tough lessons and you may not have recovered from them, or you may not have, we may not have seen the evidence that in the last couple of lessons that you've taken, that you've really bounced back where you should have bounced back. Frequently, we won't bring you lesson number 3 if lesson number 1 and 2 weren't followed with a bounce back. Do you follow that? But now we've been instructed that if you are ready for it, that we're going to go right ahead with 3 and 4, whether or not 1 and 2 showed a bounce back or not. And it will be a real test of you. Still, do you have to do something? Yes, I do. You have to go? Okay, do you need a helper? What's the problem? Turn the tape off just a second real quick.
When you first came up, it's funny because I was thinking about writing a note where I've actually written my attention, and I started thinking, well, what if this stuff was used and the vehicle kind of got butterflies? But I would really like to have it used because, I mean, there's a lot of lessons involved in the situation, and even though whether it was my mind or the vehicle that was embarrassed about responding the way it did, but I know the class, at least the number of us last week, got similar responders.
Well, I'll tell you what we've done. We've done this at times. We've done this quite a bit, but we haven't done it as thoroughly as we feel like we're being instructed to do it now.
Only with certain individuals. You understand that? Right?
Well, what do you mean on new students?
Well, there were some individuals we knew we couldn't do it with.
Yes, that it
Because
was.
we didn't think that they could take it. And
At the time, we didn't feel like they had their vehicles in control enough that it would end up being a positive for them. So in a sense, we're flattering you, or you should be flattered that we have come to the point where we feel now that we can do this, and we don't anticipate any negatives from this move. We anticipate only positive. So feeling that way means that no longer should we feel like certain ones would find it too difficult to have their particular lesson discussed openly in the classroom. Do you follow that? So there are a lot of little side things about it that, like you all expressed, make us feel very good that we were to bring this to you and that you voted it. So what we want, Tina decided that we went out and asked Bach what he thought, and he said, go ahead. So what we're going to do is go ahead with vote right now, and any that don't want to proceed, and let's see, if he can vote for Destody since he's not here. Any that don't want to proceed with this next step, we want you to raise your hand, and we mean it right now.
who don't want to?
Yes.
Okay.
Isn't that what it is? Now, if you've got your hand down too low, we've got to see it. You can't later say, well, I had my hand up. Didn't see it.
Well, I was going to go ahead.
Now, this means that, to me, if I were sitting where you were sitting, this would mean that my actions would have more restraint from now. Because I would know that I have asked that anything that I do that is in question, that might be a lesson for anyone, that it be brought up as an example of a less than right action to the class. So I feel good about it. I hope you feel good.
There's one question that came up that I felt like we ought to discuss in front of the group. This isn't on the same thing, but it is a question.
Oh, wait a minute. Are we back on? Oh, okay.
And that is, what if, what if the lab crew that you're supposed to be working with doesn't show up for the briefing? What are you supposed to do? Tell me.
Thank you. You said you're on
Okay, what if you're in a position that you can't initiate something like that?
I think if I was in that position, I think I would restrain from taking any action. Perhaps it was necessary right now.
Well, it's a pretty helpful. What happens to the briefing? You know, what do you, does it not happen? In other words,
That's your proposition again.
What if the crew doesn't show up? Suppose you are an individual who cannot initiate something, and you are scheduled for a lab briefing, and you go to the lab briefing, and no one else shows up on your crew. What do you do? Any other?
Me and Christy want to go on position of my...
Well, see, you can look at it in a way that if that three person was looking at it in a way, it looks like that person's trying to initiate something. See, Looney?
I could be wrong, but I think if that really happens to me, I wonder if I might have missed something. And would it be right then to go to one of my other crew members and ask them if I was missing something?
Well, that's about all you could do, really.
Yeah, that's what I'd do.
First, you
I
should...
wondered if I wasn't wrong about when the briefing was, and go and check with one of the crew to see if this was when the briefing was to be scheduled.
If it isn't, then what time was it supposed to be?
Right, because you'd have to say it in the way that you were coming from the right place where you really wanted to know, because I would suspect that I was wrong if nobody else showed up.
First, where you're hoping that everybody does show up when a briefing is scheduled, but if a lot of activity is taking place at that time with the ones who are on that crew and time gets by, then that's about all a person can do, is to go to somebody in the crew and very carefully ask what's the note you mentioned. Okay? We really don't have any questions right now. Do you have any?
Okay. You mean, what?
Anything to bring up?
Not right.
Okay, here, Rody, what's the question?
If I remember correctly, when we were in Space City, which was a time I received a lot of medicine, and I think we got a lesson. Part of the lesson was helping us to understand what was happening when we got the medicine and the subsequent suffering that it sometimes caused. And I thought it was explaining that whenever you feel that kind of suffering, the medicine is coming, it's just the way that it's just a translation of
biological circuitry in the vehicle being changed. And I wondered if that was still accurate. And
Yes, but now we're saying that hopefully you're above noticing that you're above, like you can, it's not necessary to have that ouch from the penicillin shot, even though the chemistry of the penicillin is coming in. You know what we're saying? You're big kids now, and you can take shots without any feeling.
And I think a lot of what we, to add to what Joe said, I'm not discounting what he's saying, but to add to it, as your mind comes in, it causes a reaction in your vehicle. And your vehicle can interpret it. It can pick some kind of thing just out of the air that it's suffering from. But it really isn't suffering from that. In other words, this is again what we were saying, that when you're feeling something, it's usually not you. It's from your strain. Or it could be your mind coming into your vehicle and your vehicle translating it to mean such and such a thing. Or it could be an experience that you have been faced with that would bring to your attention what your strain is causing you to be troubled by. Now, you've got to realize you have no one answer for anything. There are a lot of answers for just about everything. And it isn't that we're trying to cover our best. It's the truth. You just can't say it's because of this.
That's the way humans do it.
You know, it's because of this. This is why it's happening. And it could be a number of things. So the best thing to do is not zero in on it, but just do whatever you need to do to get you by at that time without getting into it.
And to get you above it.
Right. So whatever helps, whatever works, then do it.
so let's say you were in a meeting and you brought up a note that was written and it involved a lesson that you were concerned with, and your vehicle did have a reaction. Are you saying that you could just, as a technique for not letting the vehicle get out of control, you could just feed it the mind as well as just change in your circuitry? If your vehicle is one that's prone to buying that kind of...
Well, the most up-to-date thing we've given you would be you do what? Because you're referring to something that was some time ago.
That's not,
And we like the most up-to-date. What?
that's not you.
No, what's even more updated? What you try first before you say that's not you? Do you know what I mean? Block. Just when you sense that feeling there, just block it. And then if it persists and you have to go into that's not you and so forth, then you do whatever it takes. But the first thing is, when you recognize that the vehicle is trying to have an adverse or human feeling, is to just recognize it's trying to happen. A minute, just block it.
It's like a gong. You know, we're standing up here using words that will cause like a gong going off. And you know how you feel like you vibrate when a gong goes off. And what you try to do is stop your vibration. Okay? Because in a sense it's a minor shock to your vehicle. Because it's almost like hitting you with something that, or exposing something. And it's almost like they would never do that.
There shouldn't be, since we've made so much to do over this today, there shouldn't be many aftershock in subsequent meetings. You know what we're saying? Because you know it's going to happen, and you're prepared for it. And if your head's in the right place, you want it to happen, because you want to get every last ounce of lesson out of that circumstance that you could. And if your vehicle is still responding a little negatively to it, then it's an opportunity to get it twisted a little further in the right direction.
I guess what I was mainly interested in was, I don't know if it's the vehicle or something the mind is aware of or what, but if there is an actual biological change still going on, like we
talk about.
Well, why do you care?
I don't know.
Well, drop it.
It's good with
Why don't you
knowing
drop
that
it?
anyone can you know.
Uh,
But we really feel like the vehicle is going through a change, which it is accepting your mind more, if that would help you understand. So that you can get more mind into your vehicle in order to get the vehicle under control and in order to do your tasks. So in a sense, there is a change going on, but it doesn't really matter. What you want to do is just stop it from vibrating, so to speak, whenever it receives a shock of some sort. Like if we bring up something that Air Rody has done and wasn't aware that he had done it, even though we don't mention his name, you still might